Welcome to Alberta Conservation Association's Harvest Your Own podcast, the resource for everything hunting, navigating through the field, the butcher shop, and the kitchen. Life is all about great food. Let's get started.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Brad Fenson, an avid outdoor enthusiast who has worked as a freelance journalist, photographer, and public speaker for over 3 decades. I have hunted, fished, and foraged all my life and hope to share my passion for the outdoors. Along the way, I want to encourage everyone to harvest wild proteins and enjoy the satisfaction of providing the next meal for your family. Our goal is to educate, entertain, and inspire individuals to get outdoors and create a connection between food, health, and your future meals. Welcome to Harvest Your Own. We've got a guest that you've heard before. You've probably read some of his stuff in Conservation Magazine. If you follow him on social media, you know that he is a gourmet chef without training. But welcome back, Josh Glover. How you doing today, Josh?
I am good.
You know, we've done a couple shows on different things, and we did one on shooting rabbits and hares. And people said, we want more. What else can you tell me about rabbits and hares? So here you are. You're back chatting with Harvest Your Own.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me. It's always a fun time, always a good time, and yeah, hopefully we can shed some light on hunting rabbits and cooking them and doing all the fun stuff with them.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, things are very different. I travel quite a bit in North America, and people look at rabbits and hares very differently. In some places, they're a staple and a key species for hunting and pursuing for much of the year. They got specific dogs and training. And then you go to other regions, and rabbits are almost like the forbidden fruit. You don't touch them, you don't shoot them. There's rumors about them having, the plague and other things like that, which is quite crazy. But, I've eaten lots of hares and jackrabbits and even some cottontails and found them to be quite delicious and never had a problem with them.
Yeah. I think a lot of it comes from and a little bit of history, and somebody can fact check this, but years ago I read an article on why people aren't too fond of eating rabbits nowadays, or hares more or less. And a lot of it was from back when times were really hard and tough, and when the Great Depression hit, people would just, that was one thing that they would, they had available to them, so they would go ahead and eat it. And then after the Great Depression, it was looked down upon if people ate rabbit. It's kind of like the whole lobster thing,
right? The poor people's food.
Yeah, that's right. So I think a lot of the stigma comes from that. And then, I lived in Manitoba for a little while. Not a lot of rabbit hunters out there either. And I've been told, they have all sorts of diseases and things like that. So,
right.
Yeah.
Not true. And it's very east-west. I find that if you've come from the East Coast, you probably have hunted rabbit, eaten rabbit. I've got friends in Nova Scotia that make a special, they call it rappy pie. It's a rabbit pie, and it's got to have summer savory in it. And that's something that you can now find in Alberta because we have lots of East Coasters here, and they've requested it enough you can find it in the grocery stores. But, it's strange. It can be a gourmet item, highly sought after in some areas. Yet we haven't got there in Alberta, but there are more hare and rabbit hunters than ever. We've been talking the talk, walking the walk, and people are actually getting out there and trying it. If you follow social media and watch Alberta hunting addicts and stuff like that, you'll see that people have been out grousing, and almost every photo has a couple hares in it, which you never used to see that.
No.
So,
nice.
To me, it's nice to see. Yeah, people are stepping out of their comfort zone, trying something different. And all of a sudden you see it happening more and more because they get a taste of it. And how's rabbit?
Mm-hmm. It's delicious.
Right.
Yeah.
It really is. Yep.
And available. There's so much of it out there. You can pretty much kick up a rabbit wherever you go in the bush.
Exactly. Give us a little bit of your history. You grew up on the East Coast.
Yeah. So I'm from Newfoundland. Left there 2010, I think. Moved to Manitoba. I was there for 4 years and then moved out here. Finally made it out here. So I'm a Newfie that came the long way around, I guess you could say. It took us a little bit longer to get here, but we don't regret it one bit. We love it out here. There's so much hunting, so much available. And the things that we enjoyed back east in Newfoundland, we can do it here too. So
yeah, pretty special.
Yeah.
It's family traditions, hunting rabbits.
Absolutely.
You grew up eating hare, and it was something that everyone looked for and enjoyed.
We did, yeah. It's the first thing I hunted with my dad. I can remember that first time, trailing behind him, going and setting snares, and you take your Halloween treats with you, and that's what kept us busy and kept us entertained and
Right.
interested in it. And I did it right through, all the way through until probably 2005. I went with a friend with his dog, with his beagle.
Yep.
It's huge back east, right? If all the way down to New York, past New York into New Jersey, they use beagles for hunting hares and rabbits, and it's the same in Newfoundland. It used to be quite a bit more, but typically certain areas you can go and everybody has a kennel in their backyard, and,
Wow.
it's easy to get a dog.
Yep.
So I went with this guy, with one of my good buddies, and I think it was in October, February. I had a dog. Yeah, I was hooked.
Yeah, I think I got to hunt behind one of your favorite beagles of all time.
Yeah. He was a good boy. He put up a lot of rabbits over 12 years, and unfortunately he's not with us anymore. But
Yeah, they're special when they're here. They give you lots of memories, lots of excitement, lots of adventure, and I'm just glad I got to share some of that and see how they actually work, because it's there's a lot of insight. I asked you earlier before we got started here, can you use any dog for hunting rabbits and hares?
sure, yeah.
Right?
I mean, just like you can walk up rabbits, you can use a dog just to flush them. I mean, they're not going to be the beagle that chases them in circles back to you and things like that, but still they're going to kick them up, and they got a nose on them. If they got a nose, they're going to find rabbits.
Yeah, and it's important to know that, when you're out hunting grouse and you flush a grouse, it's just going to beeline away from you, probably head into heavy cover, and hopefully it can, out-hide you, outrun you, or something. But rabbits and hares are different. They're what's the right word? They're very methodic about how they try to get away. They've got trails in the bush. They're well scented. They can smell them and identify them. They know where they are, but they're running circles around you.
Yeah, they try to give you the slip. But yeah, no, you're right. They're pretty intelligent in a sense that they have their trails. They're territorial, so they have their territories that they go. We would run rabbits sometimes 30 minutes, 45 minutes, easy. And then all of a sudden it takes a, beeline for a whole different area of the woods, the cover that you're hunting. And then you got to completely reposition yourself, find another spot to set up and wait. And hopefully he comes back around again.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that's an important discussion point, is how to hunt rabbits and hares. If you're going to get in the bush and try to walk them up like you do a grouse or something like that, you got to position people behind you and off to the sides that are going to remain motionless, is the best way to put it.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. We've done it a few ways. The best way I've done it before is in an open field, or I would say kind of a canola field with caraganas, rows of caraganas, and you stage people all the way around. And this is with the dog, but I mean, you can still do it with a person or any kind of dog. Sorry, this is with a beagle, but you could do it with any kind of dog. And you get them just to push through that bush, and the rabbit's got to come out somewhere, and somebody's going to get an opportunity.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because I had a landowner listen to our last podcast about hunting hares, and he phoned me. I think it was late August, early September, and he said, I was swathing my canola, and there were so many hares in there, and they all went to one corner of the field and all ended up in this one bush. You should come out here and hunt them. He said, we probably saw 50 of them go in there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's, little things that you can learn along the way that make a big difference. And as soon as you said you had them in a canola field, I'm like, that's strange, because I'd heard that, and I thought that was something new, but obviously hares like canola. They must like it as a food source, or the hide, or there's something there that they definitely key into. So fields adjacent to canola or a forest adjacent to canola might be something to look for this winter if we're out looking and trying something new.
Maybe we have some listeners that can chime in and let us know if they've experienced something similar to that. Because that was one time only, and obviously that farmers had the experience as well. So maybe there is a connection there. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe something we're learning as we're talking.
That's right.
This podcast is produced for Harvest Your Own, a program dedicated to those who want to reconnect with food and health through their experiences outdoors. HarvestYourOwn.ca is a resource for individuals to learn more about hunting and the outdoors. There's information to get you started and ensure that your compass stays pointed in the right direction to be successful. Where's your next meal coming from?
Yeah, it's always fun to get out. It's interesting to watch those back trails and identify the key trails. You said you snare rabbits.
Yes.
So you learn a lot about them when you're out there. Like, you pay attention to where the fresh tracks are, where the most tracks are, where the beaten trails are, where the faint trails are, where they use cover, overhead cover, like getting under logs or different things. And you start putting it together as to where to look or how to put that puzzle together to figure it out.
Right. So the easiest way to hunt, if you don't have a dog available or, if you don't have the know-how for snaring, things like that, you could walk them up. And the easiest way to do that would be to do a 1, 2, 3 step and then stop and look around. And typically they'll bust themselves because they get a little bit nervous and they run off. But the funny thing is you're looking for that little black ball, the eye. And that, I guarantee you, once you see that the first time, and I mentioned this last podcast as well, I can remember when we went down this route. But once you see them the first time, it's hard not to see them the next time, believe it or not.
You got to train your brain for what to look for.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately for the hares this year, we haven't had much snow. Much of Alberta still doesn't have snow. And hunters had a ridiculously unfair advantage. I know we've got hares coming in and out of our yards, and it was like, they stood out like a neon sign. They're white. Everything else is brown. When we go for a walk back here on our trails, they can't even hide. But what a learning experience. Mm-hmm. We often think they always break. They don't. They often hold tight. And I could see where they're hiding. They thought they were well hidden. I didn't have to look for that eye. I could see little bits of white under a log or where they've tucked in and made a nest for the day. And it was like, take note, they're there when the snow's there too, but they're going to be really hard to see. But man, they stuck out this fall and still do. Like, anyone that's new to hare hunting or wants to try it, this is a great time to go. There's still lots of woods without snow in it. And yeah, those hares are white and everything else is brown.
Yeah, there's plenty of ACA sites you can go, Ducks Unlimited sites, things like that. You can go, and typically anywhere there's boreal forest, and you have the short spruce trees where they can hide and under. Even when you mentioned that we don't have much snow now, even when we do have a lot of snow, you'll still see them. You'll still see the yellow pads of their feet sometimes, unless they're really tucked up into a ball under the spruce trees. But they're hard to see if you're walking fast and you're not really paying attention, but you'll see them.
That brings up a good point. If you're walking fast, you better be looking 40 to 60 yards ahead of you.
Right. Yeah.
Is what I find, because they will break and, they flee. It's fight or flee, and they're going to flee, and they go a long ways off. I see them moving a long ways off. I noticed that when we ran them with your dogs too, that they knew what was coming and they broke and they're on the go. So you get off on the sides and hope for the best that one circles back your way.
Yeah, the funny thing is sometimes, like you say, you do see them a long ways off, and they're just giving her. They're just not slowing down for anything. But other times they just kind of dawdle along, and they bounce along, and they stop, and they look and they listen, and that's a lot of the times you'll get an opportunity at them.
Absolutely. A lot of people like yourself, you prefer to use a shotgun.
I do.
Yeah,
I do. Yeah, and I mean, unless you're doing the spot and stock, where you're stopping, you can use a 22 or a 17. But typically, if they're on the run, you're going to want a 12 gauge or 20.
Yeah, I found that the shotgun was a huge advantage when we were out, actively walking, trying to move the hares and try to get a shot. Lots of times if you're shooting 40, 50 yards, you got a lot of trees and limbs and stuff in the way, and good luck getting a small rimfire bullet through that.
Yeah, you compare it to it's grouse hunting, right? Basically, but you're shooting on the ground.
Yep. Yeah. You are, but if they're on the move, we've all shot clay targets and we've gone to waterfall warm up, and when they throw that rabbit clay that runs along the ground and bounces, it's pretty close to what those hares are to experience. And boy, you got to learn to, they say shoot them into the ground, which means shoot at the base of the clay and just in front of it. Learning how to lead them and shoot and find those openings in the woods it's a whole new game compared to hunting ducks or geese.
Yeah, I love that stage. I love that stage, and I love seeing all the divots in the grass.
Yes, there's definitely divots in the grass and lots of clays to get away.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of bunnies too. But, if you don't have a shotgun or you don't have dogs and you want to get out and try it, I know, for years I like to go for a stealthy walk, just really quiet. Take a couple steps like you mentioned. It's 2 or 3 steps and stop. Look around, you pay attention, use your ears as much as anything. Quite often you'll hear them when they break. But if they're not really alarmed, I found that a lot of times they'll bounce out 2, 3, 4 feet and stop. And that gives you a chance for a shot as long as there's a clearing through the trees. If you have to move to get a shot, it's usually on the go right away.
Yeah.
But it is fun to do that. It's, and people that have never hunted hares want to be more successful. If you're doing it on your own with a rimfire, the shoulder hours, I would say, are key. Like anyone that's been out grouse hunting or even deer hunting, moving during that last light, you always see them along the edges of the road or on a trail or moving. They're really active in that last 45 minutes of daylight.
Yeah, they're not coming out for grit like birds, but for whatever reason they like to come out to the shorter grasses on the side of the road and things like that. Maybe sweeter, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, typically you can sit in your vehicle and watch them come up on the side. I don't condone that one bit, but
no, it's still better to get in the bush and make it happen.
Absolutely.
People could drive around and find them like they can grouse, but boy, if you want a new exciting hobby, shooting hares gives you a reason to get it in the outdoors every day of the year almost. Yeah,
I mean it is. You really you find that connection to nature when you get out and look for rabbits. If you don't have a gun, bring your camera along with you and try to get some shots. Next year you'll be that much better hunter.
And it is quite a bit different than the other hunting we do, whether it's waterfowl, probably closest to upland, but even big game. It's quite a bit different the way you do it because you put a moose up, he's going to run away from you and keep going. Same with elk, but hares double back. So you can walk it, sit down, take a rest, walk back. You might put them back up out of the exact same spot.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard another tactic would be to cut some young birch tops. We call them browse backies.
Yep.
Browse, right? That's where it comes from. But you cut down a birch tree or you cut down some small fresh birch trees, break them up a little bit to get the smell going. Just lay it down and go for a walk and come back and you'll see some rabbits.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting strategy.
I've never done it.
Yeah.
Never done it myself. We certainly use it around our snares. We'll take some fresh browse and break it up and put it on either side of the snare, and that scent that works sometimes. So yeah.
If somebody wanted to get out and get enough hares for a meal and set some snares, is it easy?
Snares in Alberta are fairly easy. Yeah. If you keep your snare under 4 inches, I think is the regulation.
Okay.
There's nothing you won't find anything in the hunting regulations. And you won't find anything in the trapping regulations. It actually falls under some sort of farming. That's the only thing I've ever been able to find in text.
Right.
So yeah, keep your snares under 4 inches. Typically look at the size of a hare's head. Now I know if you've never had one in your hands, you wouldn't know, but if you make almost make it look like your hand is as a rabbit's head, that's about the size of a snare that you want. You want them just to be able to tuck their ears through, and as soon as they get through it, as soon as their ears touch that wire, they'll pull back quick, and then that's it. But yeah, typically I think it's what do I use? 24 gauge wire, stainless. The problem is with stainless, you got to make sure you're going back and getting your snares, or pulling them too, we call them, right? You go back through and you pull them too if you're going to use them again, or pull them out, right? Because you don't want to be leaving that stuff in the
No,
bush.
never.
No. Right. If not, then use picture wire. It'll rust and fall apart eventually.
Yeah. How do you make the loop itself? Do you just twist it over a few times and run the wire back through it?
Yeah, so I'm 6 feet, just about 5. I like to say 5'12". And what I do is I stretch out a piece of wire about half my height. So if you take the wire in one hand and stretch it out to about the middle of your chest, that's about 3 feet?
Yeah.
3.5 feet.
Meter, a little over a meter.
Yeah, that's more than enough wire. Make a little eye in the end, and then put one end of it through. And you put it around, when you get out there, you put it around what we call a bender. You go cut a fresh tree, jam it into the ground. And the reason behind that is if he does get it up out of the ground, then it's going to hang up in some bushes and end that way. But yeah, it's as simple as going out, finding a track. It's a little harder when there's no snow on the ground. But the thing is, if you find a good run, you'll know it when you see it. You'll see buttons on the ground, which is the poop, the scat. You'll see fresh chews, things like that. If you don't see any fresh chews, move on because they're not there.
Right.
I mean, rabbit buttons will stay there forever, but the fresh chews, you'll know. And then you try to make a little bit of a funnel, cut some spruce tops off and jam it around. But the thing is, when there's no snow on the ground, it's great because you can find the runs. When the snow hits the ground, they tend to go everywhere. They tend to go wherever they want, right? So
Interesting.
it's a little harder to funnel them in, but you can build a wall and create a funnel and get them that way.
Oh, good. One thing we're going to mention is if you're going to try snaring them or shooting them, it's important to know that rabbits have incredible strength. Like, kicking and fighting and running, they do have some muscle behind them, and I was impressed when I shot the first hares and picked them up. They're pretty weighty, and when I cleaned them, there was like significantly more meat on them than what I ever imagined. So, that's all muscle. If you're making a snare, make sure you have your fasten loop done up well because they could probably pop it if you don't.
Yeah, go around your tree a couple times, and then twist it over, and then go around it a couple more times.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean. You don't want to be carrying around too much extra wire with you, but it really, too much is not enough, right?
Yeah.
This podcast was made possible by Alberta Conservation Association and the Harvest Your Own community. If you're interested in harvesting your own food, there's a comprehensive collection of information. To gain insight and knowledge, head to the field, harvest your own protein, prepare it, and taste the results. HarvestYourOwn.ca is a library of information from getting started and geared up to processing, butchering, and cooking wild game to make the connection between health and food.
Now, let's say someone's successful for the first time. Do you clean them right away in the field, and how do you clean them? Or do you have to worry about that? Do you take them home like you do ducks and geese and clean them 6 hours later? Yeah, leave them overnight, like English leave some of their stuff to age a little bit.
I've certainly done all of that. I honestly don't see too much difference when you age them. They certainly relax a little bit. If you take a rabbit and go home and cook it right away, it's going to be tough.
Right.
Unless you braise it, right? Spend some time with it that way. But yeah, it certainly will be better on the tongue, we'll say, if you let it rest for 2-3 days at least.
You can do that in the fridge, though, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hanging is better, right? If you can hang it in the fridge, yeah, that's a lot better. But yeah, anything 5 degrees and cooler, you're fine. 7 degrees. Cool.
Yep.
I've gone 7 degrees in the garage. I've certainly borderline had meat that I probably shouldn't have left that long, but certainly, yeah, 5 degrees is good.
Yeah, it's important because I've always cleaned my hares as soon as I got home. Most of the time it's from a walk in my backyard, so they're probably cleaned within an hour and a half of getting shot. And I know that the time I did get out with you, we cleaned a bunch of hares right there in the field because it was quick and easy, and the mess stayed out there and was easy to bring them home.
Right. Yeah, and Evan had that trick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, he never used a knife or anything. He just grabbed the skin, ripped it open on the back legs, pulled the hide right down over the head, gave it a twist, and eviscerated it. It was fast, easy, slick. And everything was cooled down and looked very nice by the time we got home. Yeah,
there's plenty of videos on how to clean hares and squirrels. It's kind of the same method. You can do the halfway up the back method where you pull it in each way that way.
Yep.
Hang them up we always hung them up and just pulled the jacket off them basically. Yep. Yeah.
That's a very Eastern term.
Yeah.
Take the jacket off them or take their britches off or something like that. People say. Yeah. Do your kids get out with you?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, Avery was asking me yesterday. She said, "When are we going to go set our snares?"
Oh, good.
It's typically for us. It's a Christmas thing because we have some time to get out and find the runs and come up with our little trap line.
Yeah. I asked the question because I look at people that I know from the East like yourself, it's very much family tradition. Like hunting hares is more than just a hunt. It's more than putting some groceries on the table. It's an outdoor passion and an activity that draws people together that want to do it their whole lives together.
Yeah, you'd be hard pressed to find a newfie out in the bush without a kettle and some water and some tea bags.
Right.
And that's the biggest part of it, is getting out there with family and enjoying it, kind of thing. Whenever we do anything in the woods, we're hauling some tea or coffee or whatever, and some sandwiches or bologna and things like that. But it is, you can't wait to get your kids into it so they can enjoy it with you, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, training them young to be able to watch for the sign, how to set snares, how to clean the critters. I know your kids collected hides, I believe it was, the skins of the rabbits. Didn't you try tanning some of them or curing them? Yeah,
we did some. That was they were pretty young then, so they didn't quite know what was happening. But I made a hat. I made a couple of hats out of them and things like that. They're not the greatest to work with. Hare hide is pretty thin.
Very thin.
But it was kind of neat to take some of it and tan it. I still have a bunch of home tanned.
Yep.
I just need to do stuff with it.
There's some special flies you can tie with rabbit hair too that are, take it not only provide a meal, but provide your next meal.
Right. That's something I have no idea about. Fly fishing, actually, I was talking to a friend last night and said it's something that I'm going to do in retirement, fly fishing.
Yep. In Alberta, we've got cottontails. Most of those are on the prairie. We've got jackrabbits on the prairie. Throughout the parkland, anywhere there's some farmland, we could have jacks. But snowshoe hares are probably the most popular for eating, and we have them throughout the parkland. We even have some on the prairie and the river bottoms and stuff. But any of the woodlots where you'd find grouse, deer, and stuff in farm country, you're going to find snowshoes. And you mentioned the boreal. I still love going to the boreal forest, and it's a great reason to get up there in the winter and enjoy it, plan a day or two and get out, do some hunting. We should talk about seasons. I mean, rabbits in the West aren't regulated.
No, it was kind of very foreign to me that there was no seasons on them when we moved.
Or limits.
West. Yeah.
Or license requirements.
It blows my mind there's not more people doing it. It's unreal. But I still do kind of mirror the seasons a little bit from back east. Give them a chance to repopulate,
Yeah, and that's why I brought it up. I think that's a very important message. We can hunt them 12 months of the year, but, when they have young, I was on fishing trips this year and we're quadding into some lakes and we found some very small varying hares that were no bigger than a fist if you make it. And it was great to see them, and I would never like to see people hunting hares when the young of the year are out and they're dependent on their parents. So, it's seasonal. Start in the fall, basically, when you start grouse hunting, duck hunting, and probably run it a bit later in the winter. Our grouse goes till January 15th, but you could probably go March, early April.
Yeah, we've certainly gone later into March. The season, if I remember correctly, in Newfoundland ends at end of February. So if it's a leap year, whatever that date is.
Right.
So I try to shoot for that. We sometimes go into March if it's a nice year and it's warm out and things.
Yeah. So lots of opportunity, and for anyone that struggled this fall, it was tough without snow. Some deer hunters didn't take anything home, but there's still lots of opportunity to get out and do things. And hares are something that you can quickly get addicted to. And I found it didn't take long to find others that wanted to go out and do it with us and just spend some more time in the great outdoors.
Yeah, we had no shortage of people that one day, did we?
No.
That was good.
Yep. And the most important part of this talk, you did have an article in the Alberta Conservation Association Conservation Magazine, and it was a hare recipe. What was it?
Yeah, I like to take all the front legs of the hares that nobody likes pulling the meat and things off. The kids like sausage, so I use the back legs for sausage, but typically I'll collect all the front legs, throw them in a bag, throw them in the freezer, and then we'll do something with them. And I started making wings in the air fryer, like fresh wings in the air fryer. And I came up with this method to get some fat into them by coating them in rice flour. And then halfway through the cook, then I take them out and I would toss them in olive oil just to get that fat back into them.
Yep.
And then they crisp up really nice, just like chicken wings. So
Right. Nice.
Rabbit wings.
I've eaten quite a few now. I think we mentioned this last time. We made popcorn hare or popcorn rabbit, which was just little pieces that were done into cubes that you could dip with your favorite dipping sauce. And we canned a bunch of them. And I must say that canned hare is tender, delicious, flavorful, and makes the perfect meal for the next time you're out in the woods doing anything.
Yeah, that's a delicacy back east.
Yeah, I know eastern states, southern states, where a lot of people have beagles, chase rabbits on a regular basis. I would say braising is by far the most popular technique, and it's the best way to ensure that rabbits are fork tender, because they can be tough.
Yeah. If you don't cook them, if you cook them either really quick or a long time, low and slow.
Yeah, low and slow with some liquid.
Yeah,
and I still remember I hunted cow's deer down in Mexico, and I got to cook some front shoulders off some deer, and we braised them, and they cooked for hours at low temperature in a wood oven. She would stock it very lightly, and the lady there said, I kept checking on them, and I had to wait until they surrendered. And that's kind of what I always remember about braising, is you want to cook it until things are ready to fall apart, and she could grab that front shoulder blade and pull it out. And when you braise hares properly, same thing happens. If you braise them long enough, you pick up a leg bone, all the meat will fall off, or if you give it a shake, it falls off. It's that tender. So, there are some great ways to cook it, and there's lots of recipes. We have some on Harvest Your Own. You can go to the website and find some, but any recipe that braises meat, whether it's shanks or other tough cuts, certainly would work with a hare.
Yeah, absolutely, and treat it like a red meat. So, beef stock, red wine, things like that. You're just going to make a fantastic broth.
Yeah, you just build flavors.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's funny because I've shared hunting camp with Jim Zumbo for many years. Over the years, we shared camps, and Jim was the hunting editor for Outdoor Life for decades. And one of his favorite things to bring to camp is rabbit balls. Nice. He also grinds a lot of his rabbits and makes a meatball out of them that are superb. Like, they were very good. And it's one thing I always remember about his were more cottontails, so he had to shoot a lot of them to make a big batch of meatballs, but
I bet.
They were worth the work.
They're a little, the way I understand, cottontails are lighter meat too, I believe.
Yeah.
And as are jackrabbits. They're quite a bit lighter than snowshoe hares.
Yeah, and if you get far enough north into some of the territories, Yukon and Northwest Territories, you'll overlap with some varying hares, which are about the same size as a snowshoe. I think they can be a little bit bigger, but they act very similar, just different species again.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so lots of opportunity, lots of reasons to get out with friends and family, new opportunities for hunting that you might not have tried. What else would you say to encourage people to get out and find a hare this winter?
Yeah, just get out and do it. If you're bored, if you're sitting around watching TV, you're definitely missing out.
Yeah, and I'm going to add something there. I found a big benefit to hunting hares was I learned a lot about local deer populations and grouse and other things. So every time you go in the woods at different times of the year, there's different sign, there's different things that you could learn. So it's almost like a post-season scouting trip where you learn something about other things that you may be more passionate about hunting at this point in time. And it's a great way to learn more about them, their habits, where they move, where they live, what they're eating. Quite often the hunting season closes, people go home, they never get out and investigate more, but you can learn a lot. So hare hunting can be rewarding in the fact that you can put several meals on the table, but it might make you a more successful hunter for upland game birds or deer or other things that you like to pursue wherever there's forests.
That's the beauty of snowshoe hares. They're where the grouse are, where the spruce grouse, where the rough grouse are. So once you're kicking up hares, and you're going to be kicking up grouse too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just fun, and I'm thrilled that you introduced me to it. I know you asked several times, and we probably got out 3 or 4 times that one winter. But I know you're busy these days training dogs, and you've going to have some new puppies here pretty soon.
I am. We're doing it all over again. It's it's a crazy endeavor that me and my wife started a few years ago. But if you've listened to our previous podcasts, we breed a French pointing breed, very rare in North America. And we're going to have a litter of puppies here next week, I guess, on the 27th. So it's going to be a big Christmas surprise, I guess.
Yeah, nice. I'm quite happy to hear that because I know instinctively you're going to include their training for hares, which means we're going to have new dog power and new hunting companions and another reason to get out here in future years. So
yeah, and every time I post on social media, getting out with my bird dog after rabbits, hopefully that entices other people to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no reason not to get out there. Like we said, lots of opportunity, and most of the other hunting seasons are coming to an end. So find an excuse, whether you're out ice fishing, it makes a great combo. Some surf and turf is snowshoe hares and some whitefish or perch or pike or something like that. So lots of opportunity to overlap where we go fishing as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming in today. Again, we had lots of requests for more information on hunting rabbits and hares, and you're the local expert as far as I'm concerned. So I appreciate your time and your energy and your information that you're so willing to share.
Yeah, anytime. Anybody wants to DM me or anything on Instagram, feel free anytime.
Yeah, and for more information on hunting hares in Alberta or recipes to entice your family to get out or encourage you to get out more, go to Harvest Your Own. We hope to inspire people to reconnect with nature and appreciate where your food comes from by harvesting your own. For more information on getting started or to learn specifics about the Field to Fork experience, visit harvestyourown.ca and follow on Facebook and Instagram. Check back often for new material, recipes, and videos that are posted regularly. Please subscribe to Harvest Your Own podcast and take the time to rate and review the show to help us build a dedicated core of passionate hunters as our regular audience. Until next time, embrace the outdoors and all it has to offer. Thanks for joining us.